This book right here, Kim's Lost Words, A Journey for Justice from the Other Side, it's just 60 pages. It's a very short read, right? But it contains sordid and candid details from Diddy's now deceased baby mama, Kim Porter, such as these tidbits about Diddy's bizarre sexual practices. She said, quote, "Then he asked me to do it again. It was insane." Sean said, "Baby, I can't stop thinking about it. I became infuriated. Why don't you go to Clive? He is the one screwing you, isn't he?" Then Sean hit me. This was the first time, but he slapped me hard. Before I could form words, he began to beg, I'm sorry. Holding my cheek where he hit me, I turned and ran off. Now, for clarification and for the sake of families with young children, we won't show the image of what sex act Kim was referring to, but it's known as pegging. And it is a disturbing role reversal of man and woman when in bed together. Now, apparently, Diddy preferred this, and it might explain his rage. But Diddy's sex crimes were apparently boundless. Here's one of his victims explaining what happened to her and how Hollywood executives literally looked the other way as it was happening.
I'm like, you guys stop, like stop. And they're getting to the point where they have like ripped my shirt off. And like, I'm like almost fully exposed at this point. And they're both coming at me. And I'm like, you guys, like seriously, this isn't funny anymore. And I look to my left where his executive is. Like, we know him pretty well. Like, we've been around him a lot. He's literally 3 feet away from me. It isn't actually the aspect of being sexually assaulted. That's not what haunts me. It's this. It's as these two grown men were pawing at me, trying to take my clothes off, I look over to this man asking for help, and I literally mouth the word help. And we lock eyes. And he looks away.
Why did so many people in authority look away from Diddy's egregious violations of laws and decency? Diddy's former rival in the rap and gangster world, Suge Knight, claims that Diddy was a highly valued FBI criminal informant, or CI. Here's an example of that.
The police will bring in a CI and will use him like she was a $3 hoe. That's a confidential informant. They'll let you do crimes, long as you don't do no murders and stuff like that. They'll let you go around and pay you. When I was in law enforcement, dog, they paid confidential informants $250 for revolvers, $500 for automatic weapons, $750 to $1,500 for semi-automatic guns and rifles and machine guns and shit like that. Some confidential informants got payment like that. And plus they get 8% of a case.
In the wake of the Jeffrey Epstein controversy, it's surprising that any member of elite society would be engaged in such organized criminality. But perhaps that's the point. Because like Jeffrey Epstein himself, long rumored to be an asset of the intelligence community, perhaps Diddy was just serving his masters and acquiring compromat on powerful people. I mean, like Epstein, Diddy had plenty of access to high-profile celebrities, business executives, and even politicians, such as Barack and Michelle Obama. With so many elites engaging in degenerate sex acts with each other, and possibly even children, is it any wonder that the media and politicians are pushing things like this book, Queer, a graphic history on young children in Fairfax County, Virginia? Fairfax County is just a hop and a skip and a jump away from Washington, D.C., by the way. It's where people like our old friend Peter Strzok, the former head of the FBI's counterintelligence department, used to live. And that book is graphic, as Stacy Langton showed at a PTA meeting in Fairfax County.
I brought a selection from my son's school, Fairfax High School. Let's see what it's teaching our kids. The book, called Queer, A Graphic History by author Meg-John Barker, is indeed graphic. It has illustrations of sex acts, some of which are deviant, but this book teaches that there is no good or bad kinds of sex, only a diverse range of practices and attractions.
Stacy Langton joins us now. She calls herself a mama grizzly and have been fighting to get such filth, absolute smut, out of our schools and away from our vulnerable children. Stacy, thanks for joining us. And you know what? I want to let my audience know that you put the connection between Diddy and the smut books in libraries, children's libraries all across the country. And when you laid out your connection there, or laid out the theory, it made a lot of sense to me. So I'm just going to let you explain that to our audience.
Right. So the book that I was exposing at that school board meeting last year was called Queer, A Graphic History by Meg-John Barker. And it had several illustrations, which are pornographic in nature, meaning completely X-rated, very similar to the original book I exposed, which was called Gender Queer. And there's a particular image from this book, which I printed it out on a poster and I held it up to show the school board because it's so shocking. I don't think they were aware of what was in the pages of this book. And it depicts a practice called pegging. And pegging is an inversion of the gender roles. This is a completely deviant act. And it showed a set of parents who were apparently heterosexual, engaged in sex on a bed, and the mother was wearing a strap-on dildo, sorry, and the husband, was on his hands and knees in the receiving position. And so I had to say this at a school board meeting, and I had to ask my school board, why is this in my son's high school? Why are you guys showing this kind of filth and perversion to our children at Fairfax High School? And the act of pegging is an inversion of the gender roles, right? It's so deviant. I'm certain, and I think I said it in my speech, like, this isn't going on in my house, and I'm probably sure it's not going on in very many people's houses at all. But guess where it is going on? It was going on in P. Diddy's house. Sean Combs's dead wife, or well, she wasn't married to him, but his baby mama, as you called her, was with him for over 20 years. She bore 3 children by him. And on the first 3 pages of the book, she describes that the first time they're together, when she's 20 years old, he asks her to put on a strap-on device and peg him. And then she proceeds to describe the injuries that he sustains from this act. So it's really important that people know what we're talking about. And the word that I said initially in September of 2021, which is pedophilia, it all comes back now, full circle, pedophilia, and the perversion of our children. And what these school districts are doing nationwide is they are raping your children's minds. Sean Combs was raping children. Sean Combs was raping men. Sean Combs was raping women. And Kim Porter from the grave says, Sean Combs must be stopped. And that's why she wrote the book.
Yeah, and there's lots of speculation as to the real causes of her death, right? And she was very much in fear of her life for many times before actually being hospitalized and then ultimately dying. And she writes about that in the book, I believe. I'll be honest, I haven't read it. I know you have encouraged me to do so. It is a short read, it's 60 pages, but I understand there's just so much graphic content in her book, right? Witness accounts of what she saw firsthand.
Right. So the book is so graphic that, it would be hard to transmit or relay some of the information on the
Yeah.
air, right? Because of, we have censorship laws and decency laws, obscenity laws in our country. And she does name names. And there are a lot of people named in this book. And there are still yet, the author, Christopher Todd, kept some people's names X'd out. And he gave a lengthy interview when he published the book where he said, those names are so explosive that they will be revealed, but at a later time. Because he said, if I was to release all of the information that Kim Porter obtained, it would basically end the entertainment industry in a 24-hour period.
You've made a great connection here. The books that we're seeing in the schools is undeniably grooming children, right? And it appears to be grooming them for elite society, because now we're finding more and more elites who engage in this kind of absolute degenerate, despicable, and perverse activity, right? And they're grooming the youth to be a part of that, to find it acceptable, for it to not be abnormal to them because they've read these books like Queer Graphic Story. Now, there's been speculation, there's been some, there is serious concerns that he, and some people, like the one reporter, her name doesn't come to mind immediately, but she's great, from Hollywood, saying that there are minors involved. Do you believe that will be confirmed and come out very soon? And I believe you believe that there are going to be more indictments very soon, right? Like imminently.
Right. Well, and it already has come out, because the civil case attorney in the state of Texas, he said last week, we have 120 victims. And he said, right now we have 60 male victims and we have 60 female victims. And he said the time span of all the various crimes, for the victims at the age of the time of the crime is over a 25-year span. This goes back almost 30 years. Diddy's been at it for a long time. And he said the youngest victim is a 9-year-old boy. He was 9 years old at the time of the crime. And that's why I say, that's pedophilia. And that is what is depicted in the 2 books that I initially exposed at the Fairfax County School Board meeting in September of 2021. The media hates it when I say the P word, right? They don't like me calling it what it is, but that's what's going on. And as you said, these elites seem to be wanting to groom our children in society and breaking down all of these barriers and these natural taboos that exist between the thought of whether it would be okay for an adult to touch a child or put your hands on a child, and for there to be a sex act between an adult and a child. And I think it's very confusing for children, number one, especially if they already have some sort of predisposition or other mental health issues going on. And if they have gender dysphoria, for example, and then they start looking at books with these kinds of illustrations where, they're literally inverting the gender roles. And then you've got boys in the illustration that look like girls and girls in the illustrations that look like boys. And then they're all having sex with each other. And it's like, what are we doing to our kids? Well, I think they're intentionally damaging them and also desensitizing them and sexualizing them. And then all of this stuff together works, I think, collectively to make your child more vulnerable to predators.
It obviously does. Look, I have forgotten Tony Busby. He's that an amazing attorney out of Texas who is famous of late for his defense of the Attorney General Paxton in his impeachment trial. This guy is amazing. He was amazing in the impeachment trial, and I'm glad to hear that he will now be representing victims of P. Diddy, because he's an excellent attorney. And I forgot he had said that he had a victim who, when it happened to him, was as young as 9. It's heartbreaking. Look, what amazes me is the soccer moms that go along with this, right? Who say, "Oh, let's be inclusive. This is not grooming. It's just diversity." I hope to goodness that what we're learning from Diddy, they will wake up and make the connection that you've made, Stacy. I pray that these women will wake up before it is their children who are the victims. Stacy Langton, any last words?
Yeah, I think the thing that I've noticed over the last 3 years that I've been in this fight is the thing that wakes people up the fastest is to show them the images, right? Like I come across Democrats in my travels who have never seen the images of some of the books that I've exposed. And I notice, you guys aren't showing it right now because you would probably have to blur the image a little bit to even show it. But if I show the images to a Democrat or to someone of the liberal mindset, they have an immediate visceral reaction to it. And they go, oh my God, no, I'm not okay with that. This isn't political, right? So if you want to wake people up on the left about what's being done to harm our children, you have to show them. Sometimes you can't tell people, you have to show them. And when you do, it's like it lifts the scales from their eyes and then they see what's really going on, because nobody wants this for their children. Nobody wants their child to change their gender from what they were born, how God made them. And nobody wants their children to be raped by an adult. And nobody wants their children to be trafficked by an adult. Everybody, as parents, regardless of what your political affiliation is, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, we all want what's best for our children, and we want them to have their innocence preserved for as long as possible, because the world is an ugly place. And once they get out there as adults, they'll be better equipped to handle it. We don't want that ugliness brought into their childhood years. Every parent wants a happy childhood for their kid.
Yeah, amen to that. Stacy Langton, thank you so much for your tireless efforts in advocating for our children's rights. You can find her on X at MamaGrizzly.org, at MamaGrizzly.org. Good to see you, Stacy.
Thanks, Emerald. Good to see you.